afternoon. The sessions post-lunch are always the hardest to run. I hope you've had your coffee, but even if not, this session should be very energizing. So my name is Aparna, and I lead AI and GenAI practice with Southeast Asia BCG. And last year, same time, I was here talking about the potential of GenAI, and back then, everything was about experimentation, POCs, and pilot. Today, everyone is convinced about the potential, but the question is really around deriving value at scale. So what's the real transformative impact that everyone was talking about? Because most companies are still stuck in POCs. So today, we have 4 industry experts who are leading and driving this topic in their companies. We have Ryan, Cindy, Ian, and Kenneth. I'll start briefly with their introductions before we get into the meat of the discussion. So maybe we start with you, Ryan.
Hi, I'm Ryan Kim. I'm a Group Chief Digital Officer from FWD. Very happy to be here. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Kenneth Siow. I'm the General Manager for Tencent Cloud, responsible for the Singapore Malaysia market.
Hi, everyone. My name is Ian Glasner. I'm the Group Head of Emerging Technology, Innovation and Ventures with HSBC.
Hi, everyone. I'm Cindy Siow. So I head Data and Analytics in BDO Unibank from the Philippines.
Thank you, everyone. So at this point of time, we all know that in terms of potential of AI, GenAI, and I was listening to the previous panel as well, the use cases are relatively clearer, whether it is about optimizing customer services or optimizing customer experience or using GenAI to combat risk or fraud. I'd love to understand which of these applications or use cases are you seeing in production at scale or generating impact. Maybe we start with you, Ian.
Happy to. First, thanks for having us today. When it comes to artificial intelligence, I think I always like to first take a step back and remind everyone, delivering artificial intelligence is not the goal, right? Improving customer experiences and creating value is the goal. And so in all of the use cases that we consider and prioritize, thinking about the business case and how we can actually improve customers' lives is where we start. How we think about the different types of use cases that we prioritize to move into production are really into 2 different buckets. One are what I would call more simple but cross-industry use cases, and the others are specific to financial services. So examples of cross-industry use cases might be things like enhancing the software engineering lifecycle. In other words, code generation and other tooling to improve software engineering efficiency. Another could be to enhance our cybersecurity technology. And then there are the financial services, more relevant specific topics, things like improving contact center or delivering better fraud detection. I'll give one more example of a use case that I'm very excited about that I think is a bit more far-fetched because it will involve some AI that faces off directly to our clients, which we're not ready to do yet, and I think most of the industry is not doing as of now with generative AI. And I'll take a step back and think about technology in terms of horizons over the last couple of decades. When you think about Horizon 1 and Web 1, you had these static websites and static even applications today on your phone. When you think about your airline application on your cell phone or your banking application on your cell phone, if we all take it out and compare, all of our applications look the exact same, right? Other than the amount of money in your application, our apps look the exact same. And then came platforms. Then came Google and Meta and the iOS platform. And what AI is going to enable is it's going to enable the 3rd horizon. And it's going to enable an experience where applications are voice controlled or chat controlled, and users can get done exactly what they need to get done in a moment's notice.
Thanks, Ian. Kenneth, very keen to hear what are you seeing in industry?
So, again, pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me. So maybe just a little bit about Tencent. Tencent is one of the world's largest internet company in the world, and we are the leading gaming publisher in the world. In fact, we're the world's largest gaming publisher. We're also one of the world's largest media tech company. And in the financial services space, we're also one of the largest operator of FinTech, which in the form of WeChat Pay. Of course, it rides on the WeChat communication platform, which today has roughly about 1.3 billion monthly active users. So I completely agree with what Ian said. Everything that we think about constantly is how do we solve problems. So at Tencent Cloud, which is the B2B arm of Tencent, we're constantly looking at what are the underlying technologies that we can apply internally to solve our problems, and then look at how do we eat our own dog food and then commercialize it and bring it out to financial institutions in the market. So one example, I mean, I can give some examples. In the gaming industry, for example, where we're developing a lot of games, our engineers could be spending months and months developing a particular object, or a mountain in a game, or developing a particular character, or developing a particular skin in a game. Historically, that takes a long time. But now we're looking at how do we leverage the power of AI to solve and speed up the software engineering capabilities. Another example would be in the form of eKYC, right? So if you think about the scale of the users in WeChat environment or WeChat Pay environment, where potentially you have millions of people trying to onboard themselves onto the platform to be able to use WeChat Pay, it would be an administrative nightmare if we were to do the KYC in a very manual fashion. So one of the things that we have to constantly think about is how do we automate some of these processes? How do we scale this, not just to millions of people, but across hundreds of millions of potential users? And how do we automate and increase the efficiencies of how we detect fraud, for example? So I think it's not just Gen AI in general, but I think it's a much broader topic of how do we take AI to really apply that in real life problems so that we can actually come up with actual solutions that's supported by the capabilities of AI.
Thanks. Ryan, FWD is known to be an early adopter when it comes to AI, and then same for GenAI. What are you seeing in terms of impact, user feedback, and early adoption insights that you're getting from some of the use cases that you have implemented?
Yeah, so within FWD, we're an insurance company, so we're actually using the GenAI and also AI and form of other the machine learning for slightly different context compared to the payment and banking industry. And we heard enough about GenAI from our colleagues from banking regarding how they actually use and also how responsible we are as being very important. Within our journey of the AI, really the AI journey started almost 4 or 5 years ago for us, and generative AI is something is actually helping us to accelerate our journey. And key purpose for that is actually, as Ian mentioned, is for the customer and better customer experience. That our vision is really to change the way people feel about insurance. So in our context, we have 4 different buckets. One is actually for the distribution, and that's our sales channel. And life insurance context distribution is heavily on the human agent plus the direct-to-consumer channel. And also, we actually look at it from operations perspective and customer perspective and internal. Now, in terms of use cases, we've actually gone through a lot of GenAI POCs starting from last year. And for last 10 to 12 months, we've actually gone live in multiple markets for about 19 different sort of GenAI solutions. One of the example will be the content generator capability that we have actually embedded into our purchasing journey for our human agent. And our agents now can actually have this conversation with the customer. At the same time, the transcribe capability can actually analyze the conversation and actually pre-populate the protection needs and customer product and also some rider information. It's actually quite helpful because the way we have actually designed the whole journey was to actually, we started with a highly experienced and high-performing agent. So that sort of knowledge base has already been sort of captured into our knowledge base. And now for the less experienced human agent, we're actually providing that capability of the experienced agent, how they actually deal with the customer for certain situation. And when they actually read it through, automatically we're actually upskilling our people, and for that we've been getting really good feedback from the people. But just customer feedback is one area, but in terms of the actual business uplift, we're seeing quite a good earlier success there, here and there. So from our standpoint, the way we actually define the good KPI and distribution area is how much of the adoption is actually there, and what kind of active agents ratio is there, and we're actually seeing very positive uplift from there as well. So we're actually doubling down that, and we're scaling up. So that particular capability has already been rolled out in the country like Philippines, Malaysia, and also in Japan is actually went live as well. So where we're actually operating in 10 Asian markets, we're hoping to see that getting scaled up very soon.
Thanks, Ryan. Cindy, BDO is the largest bank in Philippines and led by a super ambitious CEO at that, Nestor himself, who has a very sharp focus on value. What are some of the initiatives that you have seen, and in terms of impact, what are you seeing, considering you all started pretty early, almost 18 months back, if I remember correctly?
Less than 18 months back. We are really ambitious, actually. We started with 3 to 5 POCs, and then in 3 months' time, we've been scaling all of these POCs, and now we've been productionizing a lot of them. What's really, really amazing is how the whole effectiveness and efficiency has been across all of the use cases that we have, and we have it in not just the operational like code generation, but also for the front-end staff that we have. We've seen uplift of like 2 to 5 times. We've seen a lot of revenue generation impact based on the GenAI use cases that we've had. So it's been quite a journey. But I think one of the things that people do not probably see is it's not just the technology. GenAI is just one tool. If you put the tool into the users, even how beautiful the tool is, people will get back into their old habits because they're used to these habits. They're used to business as usual. How are they doing sales? How are they doing different things operationally? So change management and literally how you change their behaviors are part of the things that we do in the program. So we have a big rollout from the tech perspective, but we partner very, very closely with our different business units to make sure that we have a rollout from the business perspective. And we learn from them. We learn how they behave. We learn how they use the use case. Each of the use case that we have, actually, we learn that there's different culture even within our own business units. And so we have to adapt to that. For us to be really successful and really gain the value out of each of the things that we are delivering.
Thanks, Cindy. Most folks still think I've heard somewhere that 10% of companies are actually able to scale GenAI and derive value at scale and are in production. 40% are still at POC stage and 50% have piloted and are in the journey to scaling in production. What are some of the learnings that you've had because you have been successfully deploying these use cases in production across users, across business units? What in your mind are the success factors that you'd like to share with the participants today?
When you talk about GenAI, GenAI is not just a technology. I think the organization has to understand that it will be a comprehensive shift of the way you do things in your organization. So maybe I can think of like 3 or so key success factors, I would say. First is GenAI transformation really starts at the top. Your C-level executives needs to understand the value and the use case of how does this technology translates to how do you change the business. In our case, we are very, very fortunate that we have a super ambitious CEO, and the whole program is actually sponsored by the Office of the CEO. And then we realize how important it is because a lot of the things that you will face as roadblocks is not the technology. The technology is the easiest part. It's the discussions with your risk, with your legal, and with everything else. The push from the to the business and to the users. These are all being supported by that office. So the C-level executive and that top management support is very important. The second one, I would put it as like the art of building listening and value articulation. Your business units will have to be really excited about GenAI, but they shouldn't stop us like, oh, let's experiment. I'm excited, I will support you, I want to experiment. But you have to really exhaust from your business unit, what's the articulation of value? What's the benefit for them? Can they really see that big picture? Are they really willing to transform how they work, right? when they're able to articulate that, then it's good. If they're just there to support you for experiments, I think it would be prudent for you to just delay it, because you'll probably be stuck in that POC. I'm not saying it's bad, but I'm saying, prioritize, less is more, prioritize those that you see really value and you get support from them. The users, listening to the users is important. Like, we've been there where the users, we would choose champions to be with us as we build it. And we've never looked into, I remember Adam Grant is a famous author who would say, if perfection is in a medicine bottle, the warning signs is it will stunt growth. We never looked into perfection. We would actually deploy features every 2 weeks, every 1 month, from every 3 months to every 2 weeks, every 1 month. And when we deploy it, it's not perfect, but we will talk to our users. We will have surveys, we will have focus group discussions. And on top of that, we actually study their behavior and we understand what features are they using, why are they using it, and how do we then, pivot the product for them for it to be useful to them. So that's the second thing. It's the whole art of building, listening, and then value articulation back to our C-levels to say, this is how it's benefiting them. The last one is really technology strategy. So the difficult part as well is that every 3 months, there will be a new release that's coming in that we would have to then learn. We would have to look into how do we build it in a modular fashion, in a reusable asset fashion. So when there's a change, it's actually easier. In fact, the fun part is we started to build a POC initially in 3 to 4 months. And then in the next POC, we built it in 2 weeks. That's how easy it was because of the reusable assets that we are creating. So whenever there's a POC that would come in and say, can you try to build it? We can build it easily because of those. And that's the success formula for that is really being able to work closely with our system integrators, with our tech vendors, with our consultants, where we form a community to be able to do that. So in essence, C-level support, your art of really collaborating with the business and with the ground level users who are using it. And lastly is your tech strategy.
Thanks, Cindy. Very well articulated. Ian, what in your mind are the differences that we are seeing in winners and losers?
Many, but I'll step back for a moment and talk about maybe some of the problems that I think we face that might create some of those winners and losers. I agree with, I think, a lot of what you said, but I also would, I think, maybe add that a lot of what you said is spot on, but it applies to AI and not AI, right? It's product management, right? It's the issue with artificial intelligence that I think has happened over the last couple of years is actually quite simply FOMO, just fear of missing out. So people have jumped to experiment before doing appropriate business case rigor and really understanding the customer value that they're delivering. So when you look at artificial intelligence broadly, not just generative artificial intelligence, there are 3 main risk categories that largely will make it more challenging for financial services organizations to deliver, right? One is performance and accuracy, which especially applies to generative AI because it's not deterministic. So that's simply put, getting it right and getting the outcome that you need. And the closer you get to the customer, the higher accuracy you need. Obviously, depends on the use case as well. The second is all about legal and regulatory complexity, as well as kind of societal steps that will change over time. An example I like to give is autonomous cars today are safer than having a human behind the wheel, yet somehow all of us are still allowed to drive. Right? Maybe not one day, but for now that's the case. Even though autonomous cars are safer, it will take societal shifts for actually all of us to get there. And then the last point is around what the Monetary Authority of Singapore has deemed the FEAT principles: fairness, ethics, accountability, and transparency, and actually making sure via code, policy, and governance that you can put that into use cases. So those 3 things are determining the winners and losers, and how HSBC is going about it. We're in over 50 markets, 200,000 plus employees, and millions of customers, is we're thinking about, when we think about our AI structure and how we actually deliver use cases, it's not actually about delivering use cases at scale. It's actually about picking really impactful use cases and focusing. Life is about prioritization, and it doesn't matter if we have 50 use cases, 1,000 use cases, or 5 use cases. If the 5 use cases are huge value to clients, I'd rather go and do 5 things phenomenally well. And how we focus on that is we have governance workflows and model risk management teams that are tightly integrated to our prioritized use cases. We have a structure to actually prioritize use cases across business lines and functions. We have data quality systems that are tied to the use cases that we're prioritizing. We have training plans for both users of artificial intelligence as well as builders of artificial intelligence as well as product managers of artificial intelligence, so making sure that we're going about it from a persona-driven matter. And then the last point is all around building common capabilities and common platforms. I think that will create a life cycle order of magnitude jump for enterprises. As you build your first 5 use cases, you want building the 6th use case to be an order of magnitude more easy to do. And so if you build it in a way that allows you to work more quickly on the 6th, 7th, 8th use case, you'll see that's where the winners end up being.
Thanks, Ian. Kenneth, we heard a lot about success factors. What are some of the challenges that organizations are facing in this journey?
So I wanted to write on what my fellow panelists shared. Having the right sponsors, having the right strategy, having the right attitude and ambition to solve real problems. The challenge for a lot of institutions is that they have none of these, or they have some of these, but they're missing a lot of these elements. In Tencent Cloud, I think one of the fundamental building blocks that we believe that we think financial institutions need to really consider is that they need to partner with the right technology solution partner to be able to provide the fundamentals as well as the right vision. So what I mean by that is that as a cloud provider, for example, we want to help companies to be more resilient. And by that, I mean, whatever that you're building, whatever AI toolkits that you're building, we want it to make sure that at the end of the day, it is a stable application, it is a scalable solution that you're providing, and also, very importantly, it is a very secure platform. Because in each of these elements, there are multiple angles or multiple considerations that needs to be put in place to make sure that it's highly scalable, it's highly stable, it doesn't break down, and it's highly secure. Right? In our vision of that, when you look at the fundamentals, and that again is not necessarily tied to AI, but it's extremely important because those are fundamentals of having a successful AI strategy. Would be, do you have the right multi-cloud strategy, for example? Do you have the right hybrid cloud strategy, for example? Do you have the right cloud-first strategy so that you're not able to spend hours and hours trying to build up a server, for example? You can spin up something very quickly and then you can spin it down when you don't need it. Are you able to drive the right cost efficiencies from leveraging the power of cloud computing? And today, of course, everybody's looking at more resiliency, meaning that can I make sure that I'm not putting all my eggs in just one basket? I'm spreading my risk. I'm able to work with a multi-cloud environment. So we fundamentally believe that the building blocks are important. Once we have the building blocks in place and the right architecture in place that enables the environment of a multi-cloud and a hybrid cloud environment, that's where the next phase comes in, which is how do we actually solve real-world problem with the power of large data sets. And large data sets needs to, again, sit on large compute and large storage capacity, because when you build the next generation of AI model, you do need the capabilities of being able to harness the power of data. Right? So the fundamentals need to be in place, and then the next step, of course, would be how do we then look at actual use cases and define the right strategy and the end goal in which we are able to define what would be success criteria. And we're very lucky in the sense that in China we are able to harness a lot of data. It's also a very intense competition environment where every AI players and every cloud players are very intense in terms of wanting to outpace and wanting to develop the next solution that wows the cloud. So we're always constantly thinking about how do we add value by, at the end of the day, how do we solve real life problems. So one example, right, and there are many examples, but in interest of time, would be going back to our WeChat platform example. Think about the fact that we have to handle 1.3 billion monthly active users. If everybody calls up the call center and say, I'm locked out, I need some help on a password, it's going to be an administrative nightmare. So we then now think about how do we apply the power of AI so that the contact center, the customer's experience can be automated as much as possible, at least at the first sort of level, right? The first level where the rudimentary, the basics question can then be answered by a chatbot. You can train the chatbot in multiple languages so that it's creating a much more personalized experience based on the users that are spread out across planet Earth. Depending on the country or the language that they speak on, right? And now we're also looking at applying the power of digital avatars, for example, training those models so that it becomes much more experiential in terms of the customer experience. So again, coming back to what I mentioned, having the right cloud compute strategy, having the right end goal in terms of what problems we're trying to solve, ensuring that we have the right fundamentals in place will ensure a much greater degree of success. In addition to what my esteemed panelists mentioned about having the right sponsorship, having the right processes, having the right people, the right talent to support those strategies.
Great. Cindy, I know you're deeply passionate about responsible AI, and with any new technology, as Kenneth also touched upon briefly, there are new risks. Can you talk about what are some of the initiatives that BDO is doing to make sure that there's responsible use of AI?
A lot. We are building the responsible AI in parallel of us creating the use cases. And what I think I would probably impart in the audience is when you think about responsible AI, it's very common, right? You look into the policy, you want to build the policy. The way we do it is we do both. The policy has to be translated to a certain tool. That tool has to be in production, doing what it needs to do for all of the use cases. And in fact, we started with a lot of those tools in terms of being able to monitor the model. We've created the way we can create ground truths with regards to the accuracy of GenAI. So we have a process of being able to do that because we know that every single change can potentially impact the accuracy. So together with the business, we had to build that. We had the library of all of those that we practically ask the bot questions and then be able to then see, is it giving out the same results or not? So we've done a lot of those responsible AI in terms of not just drafting the policy, but also looking into ensuring that we have tools in place. But the most challenging part, I think, is being able to then work with the different parts of the bank, work with legal, and our legal is composed of like 10 teams, work with risk, work with different types of security officers to be able to educate them for them to actually be part of that. So we're taking it in a very pragmatic, what is the priority? What are things that we need to cover and make sure that it's there? And as we build the use case, we keep on adding what do we need to from a responsible AI perspective.
Thanks, Cindy. Ryan, anything you'd like to share on how insurers are dealing with these risks?
I think both the insurance and banking sector are heavily regulated industry, so it sounds like everybody's doing similar stuff here, and I couldn't agree with more. Although things have been said, I think GenAI is just one of those things that we're really using for the actual business transformation. 5-10 years ago, it was more about the cloud, and now cloud became the BAU. And investment for the cloud was actually investment for the future before, but now is actually cost of the running business. I think GenAI will be actually serving the same purpose. Everything that we mentioned about responsible AI, also in efficiency boost up, everything is actually for the business transformation. We're working on that in the same way that everybody mentioned. Now, just very briefly, because for the sake of time, when we talk about the risk, responsible AI, I think GenAI is really one of those things that can actually help prevent this fraud risk and then also potential risk that we actually get exposed to in the world. Because humans are not perfect. And in our view, all the fraud detection stuff that we're building and all the agentic AI framework we're applying for the underwriting capability, we use the guardrail board and like everybody does. We're using all that. But GenAI, from our perspective, for the time being, we're only seeing the tip of the iceberg. So it's actually helping us to actually do a lot of heavy lifting. And a lot of cases, we're seeing 50-70% efficiency through the GenAI as a part of our business processes. Now, because of the maturity of the technology itself, we're still relying on human to make the final decision. So underwriting is a very complicated process, but with the agentic AI framework, we can actually do majority of the exercise and the processes in automated way. But at the end of the day, human underwriter makes the final decision, and that's how we're actually sort of mitigating potential risk, because we don't know what we don't know. And I think in the future, I'm hoping that GenAI can actually really step up and become much more mature and help the banking and insurance industry to actually leverage the technology in a more robust and end-to-end way. And that's probably my summary.
Thanks, Ryan. I've kept the last question and the toughest question for the end, and that is more around forward-looking view. So we're seeing, obviously, the technology is evolving very fast. There's this question on everyone's mind on whether AI or GenAI will replace humans or will it continue to augment humans, and how will the human-AI collaboration work in future? Ian, maybe we start with you.
I just want to check if we're out of time or not with our hosts.
In 2 minutes, we'll wrap up.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, look, it's a massive opportunity, and I think, simply put, this is a flip phone to smartphone moment. This is a typewriter to personal computer moment, and we all need to lean in and dive in as deep and quickly as we can to upskill ourselves and upskill our teams and upskill the community.
Got it. Kenneth, any last words before we wrap up?
I think it's important for the industry to understand the trends that's happening, understand what solution providers like Tencent Cloud's providing. We have a booth, so please come visit us. There's a number of new technologies that's cutting edge. Things like, for example, palm veins and things like digital humans are now changing and shaping the future of how customer services and how payments are being done. I think it's important to keep step. So I encourage you guys to keep on, open up your minds and really understand how some of these technologies can really change and shape and improve the future of financial services.
Thanks, Kenneth. And with that, we'll wrap up. It's been a pleasure being here with you all and learning from you all with these amazing insights and lessons. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Thank you.